Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 175 of the Citrix Session Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Bill Sutton. With me, I have a couple of folks who are with us just about every week from Citrix, Todd Smith and Geremy Meyers. Todd, you want to say hello real quick to the
Sure.
listeners?
Hey, Bill, and everyone out listening. Been quite an interesting time here, weather-wise. I'm going from the frigid cold of New England down to 80 degrees here in Fort Lauderdale today.
Yeah, you're down at the mothership this week, right?
I am.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
Geremy, you want to say hello?
Well, hello, gang. I'm Geremy Meyers, based somewhere in the middle between Florida, where it's 80, and Massachusetts, where Todd sits, and it's not 80. We'll just leave it at that. But listen, I'm happy to be here. I think we have an important topic here as we face down an end-of-life product. So I'm thrilled, Bill. Let's talk about it.
Yes, we do. The topic for today is a blog article dated January 29th. The title is It's Time to Upgrade Your Hypervisor to XenServer 8 by Michael Lindholm. So this is, like Geremy said, a pretty important topic. We don't hear a lot about XenServer. Well, maybe we hear a little bit more than we used to, but still not a great deal. But it's a very important part of the Citrix ecosystem and certainly still supported and still available to run your Citrix workloads. And really a good solid hypervisor. We actually have a project at XenTegra right now for a customer that is essentially moving everything off that other hypervisor to XenServer for their Citrix workloads. And it's a pretty significant lift. It's about, I think it's 1,500 licenses or 1,500 users, and it's going to expand by another 2,000 via acquisition. So there are still a lot of customers using this, and we wanted to bring this to life. So the kind of the overall message here at the top is that the Citrix Hypervisor 8.2 CU1 cumulative update will reach end of life on June 25th of this year, 2025. So it's a good time to upgrade your hypervisor to XenServer 8. Geremy, you want to talk about features or maybe circle back and do kind of a high-level overview before I kind of jumped into it, right?
You know what? It's all right. It's
what I
fun to
always
jump
do,
with.
Geremy.
It's what you do. It's great. You know what? We'll hit the features in a minute, but the thing I'll point out is, by the way, this is very confusing. I've had this conversation with many customers, and the current version of, let's just say the hypervisor, because two things have happened. Number one, it's changed names again, back to the original name, which is great. So we have called it Citrix Hypervisor for a few years now, and it was Hypervisor 8.2.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go out and look at the newer version, it's going to be called XenServer 8, which is going to feel like a step back. So we're going to go from 8.2 hypervisor to XenServer 8. Believe it or not, this is the newer version, right? So this article covers the fact that 8.2 CU1, like hypervisor, is going end of life this year, June 25th, 2025. So if you're a customer that's running this platform, and we have quite a few customers who are, just be aware, start thinking through what your migration plan looks like, because, Todd, it's February, and we're not that far away from June. And as we all know, it only accelerates the closer you get. So,
Yeah, I think you're bringing up a really valid point, is that, when you're updating something as critical as a hypervisor, it needs to be well planned out. And in some cases, for some customers, going from February to June, that's a pretty short and accelerated time frame.
Yep. So here's another thing that's really important to point out as well, right? So the way customers got hypervisor in the past is it shipped with any version of CVAD, it shipped with any version of, DAS, Universal, UHMC, the newer hybrid multi-cloud, the CPL license. So it was meant to run Citrix workloads. Let me take a step back. It runs Citrix workloads best. It's 100% supported for Citrix workloads. Bug fixes, engineering requests, things like that, all for Citrix workloads. We also support non-Citrix workloads as well, just to be aware of that. So we do have customers going down that path. But if you look in your licensing portal today, so if you log into citrix.com and go look at your downloads and go look at the licenses available to you, if you've done an upgrade, or if you've done a license transition, or if you purchased new licenses over the course of the last year, you will see a license file for 10,000 sockets in your licensing portal. So that's thing number one, is you should have those licenses out there if you've done some kind of transaction renewal, that sort of thing over the past 12 months. However, if you haven't yet, you might not see XenServer out there in the portal. However, you do have access to it. And this is where I would highly recommend you reach out to your account rep, you'd reach out to your partner, reach out to XenTegra, and make sure you put the request in to be able to get the licenses if this is a platform you're using and you have not done that transaction recently. Not a big deal. It's still free of charge. It's still included. There's just a request that's got to go in to actually get that license provision. And like I said, whether or not you've got 10 CVAD licenses or 5,000 or 10,000, you'll be entitled to 10,000 sockets of XenServer fully supported.
And I think the key word there, Geremy, is we license it based on sockets, not cores.
Cores.
Right? So some of the competitors out there look at the number of cores you have, which, some of the newer hardware platforms, you can have 64 cores on one socket, depending on how much money you want to spend on hardware. So it's a critical thing to kind of mention.
And the last thing is we roll into features because we've spent 5 minutes talking about the first paragraph. It's a premium feature set too. So you get all of the features, you get 10,000 sockets. It really is a solid platform. But I think what this article is trying to get to is with XenServer 8, there are actually some newer features that folks are looking for that are worth sort of talking through. So this is what this article actually goes through.
Yeah, so the first one is support for Windows 11, which I think is pretty self-explanatory, but VTPM, either of you guys want to take a stab at what that is?
Yeah, so Todd,
I knew if I waited long enough, Geremy would take this.
I can't stop myself. So there's a trusted, what is it called? The virtual trusted
platform.
Yes. Listen, if you're on a Windows 11, there's a security feature baked in that is looking for hardware that's got this TPM feature in the hardware, right? So it's trusted platform. It's kind of a big deal from a security perspective. But the question is, what do you do if it's a virtual machine and you don't have quote unquote hardware? Well, you kind of do, right? And so that's the whole idea behind this is the virtual TPM. So for customers who want to go to Windows 11, which is, by the way, looking for a TPM chip in a piece of hardware, XenServer 8 actually has the virtual version of this, which is a really big deal. It's a virtual TPM. So now you can spin up, workloads that are running Windows 11, on the hypervisor. And listen, this is probably by far the number one reason a lot of my customers are looking to upgrade to XenServer 8.
Yeah, for sure. because of the VTPM
correct
capability.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. So the second new functionality area is an integrated PVS accelerator. So PVS, of course, is provisioning services, the ability to stream the operating system to a VM. The accelerator, kind of implied, it accelerates the delivery of those workloads, and it's integrated directly into XenServer 8, right?
Yep. So I think the key here, Bill, is that it really reduces some of that storage costs, and it increases the performance when it comes to booting a lot of these virtual machines. Because think about it, when you're loading the PVS image into memory, it basically is pulling it out of memory instead of having to pull it across the wire or pull it from disk. Extremely fast, gives you one additional benefit out of PVS, which is that single image management when you're booting up the image or booting up the virtual machine. So that we just recently migrated a customer over from their other hypervisor over to XenServer, 600 hosts.
Wow.
600 physical hosts supporting Epic as the application delivery in an application delivery model. And the performance improvements that they got with using XenServer, they also had the opportunity to boost up some of the hardware as well. So they went with the Dell AMD chipsets, the EPYC or Epic chipsets, and they were seeing 30% improvements in density. So once again, combination of solutions here. So you got PVS to accelerate the disk image or the booting of the image. You've got better hardware. You've got a faster processor. out there in a new hypervisor on there as well that's been optimized for the Citrix workloads, really drove home the success that they're seeing.
Absolutely.
So Todd, what is the difference? I'm going to put you on the spot here. You know why? Because you're an old Ardents guy, and this has really nothing to do with Ardents, but it's a XenServer question. It's a hypervisor question, actually.
Unless you said old Ardents guy.
You know what? I don't want to use the old Ardents.
Well, because you're 39 again, Jim.
I thought that PBS Accelerator had been a feature of hypervisor for a while. What is the difference between?
So it wasn't.
What was in the
big
product?
thing,
and what we're
Geremy,
talking
is
about here?
It really wasn't integrated into the hypervisor itself. So it kind of ran as a standalone utility, required its own separate servers and things like that. And it was really relying on the network and the speed of the disk to really get that functionality and that improvement in efficiency. But it has been completely integrated into the hypervisor itself.
So now
once
it's
again,
part of
an
DOM
additional
0.
optimization.
So right now it's a part of DOM 0. So the control, the piece that controls all of XenServer, right?
Yep.
And one of the things it does really well is it caches a lot of those reads in memory, right?
Correct.
So what is faster than the network? Well, memory is. Disk is, but memory is too. And so the idea is you can cache in memory. You can actually fail it over to fast local disk as well, so that, maybe on the first machine that is reading the PBS disk off the network, the next machine is not reading off the network now. If it can find that bit locally, it'll read it locally.
And you just mentioned a very critical piece as well, Geremy, is the fact that it's running in DOM 0, which is more secure than if it's running in a guest VM or even a service VM. The fact that it's running in DOM 0 means that it doesn't have the ability to kind of disrupt, have a guest VM disrupt other guest VMs. So from a performance perspective, from a security perspective, and from an operational perspective, it's all adding value to that.
Yeah, but
Awesome.
one key thing that I think customers and users need to remember is, I think, and historically, I may be wrong here, Todd or Geremy, correct me if I am wrong, but DOM 0 typically doesn't have a whole lot of storage allocated to it. So you need to make sure you follow the requirements for the PBS Accelerator and increase the size of DOM 0. The customer that we're doing this for now is going to use this. It's being implemented right now. And that was one consideration, but they had NVMe drives in their hosts, really high speed NVMe drives. So this is ideal. Doesn't mean you always have to have those, but this was a particularly ideal scenario for leveraging the integrated PBS Accelerator.
Yep.
Very cool.
Next on the new functionality areas is added support for Nagios. I probably said that wrong, and SNMP. These are essentially, as I understand it, monitoring, reporting type utilities around metrics or metrics from the hypervisor. Either you guys want to comment on this?
Yeah. So we've had basic support for SNMP traps, typically on the public level. These are specific now that can interact with a lot of the lights out management systems that are in there, right? So being able to manage the actual hardware, XenServer can actually contribute information into those management platforms and accept information from those management platforms. So both Nagios and SNMP really kind of expanded out that capabilities. Really good.
And the last one on the new functionality, and which I've got some experience with, is Xen Conversion Manager. And essentially what this is it's a VM, or is it part of DOM 0? I forget now. I should know.
It's a VM.
I think it's a VM. Yeah,
I remember a VM. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a VM, but it will allow. I've used it in my personal home lab. I had VMware, and I just connect it to vCenter and tell it which VMs I want to convert, and it does the conversion. Now there are some tweaks. I found that it's easier. It works easier if you remove the VM tools before you do it, before you run the conversion. But if you do that, for me anyways, it was clean. You guys got any thoughts on this?
So I've been told, now I've not seen this firsthand, but but it looks like the conversion manager will actually do that uninstall for you now, Bill. So whereas you might want to do that in advance, now as a part of that conversion, it will uninstall the VMware tools and then give you the option on the fly to install the VMs into the image as well.
Oh, okay. I was trying to remember.
And I think this is what yet again, you didn't hear an awful lot of information or a lot of material coming out of the XenServer team for the past couple of years, but now all of a sudden there's been a significant set of improvements. We used to have to rely on a lot of third-party tools to do some of the conversion activities. You would have to go from a physical or from a virtual back down to a physical and recapture the image, kind of like the old plate spin days, if you remember those guys.
Oh yeah.
You'd have to do a V to P and then P to V type of move migration. This tool is going to be revolutionary, and the timing is almost perfect on this, right? Because everyone's looking at, spreading out the number of hypervisors, different hypervisors for a variety of different reasons. We need to have better operations. Some of the hypervisors are more streamlined for one type of workload versus another. There's the cost of renewals and things like that kind of factor into it. So I think almost every customer is doing some type of investigation or POC to try out XenServer or look at alternatives. And not only the people looking at XenServer as a replacement for VMware, but also they're also looking to potentially look at where XenServer fits in with some of the other hypervisors out there as well. So Hyper-V and AHV and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. So the next area of the blog talks about keeping the hypervisor up to date or keeping it current. I know the old way of doing this in Citrix Hypervisor 8.2 and prior was often difficult. It wasn't impossible, but making sure that the individual fixes were the right ones and you got the right mix among all your hosts. This has now been modified, and they're leveraging a content delivery network to keep the pools up to date. I know in my lab, every so often I'll see it'll say there's updates, and literally it's really simple. You just simply say next. You get to look at what it's trying to apply. It'll do all the evacuating and moving of the machines and all of those types of things for you. Then it applies them and reboots them, and it's actually, again, I only have two hosts in my little lab, but I found updating them to be very simple and seamless. You guys have thoughts on this?
That's really slick. It makes that process much, much faster. I'll also tell you that I have had 2 or 3 customers reach out and say, well, what do I do? I got a machine that's offline, or I got a pool of servers that are offline. What are my options there? I didn't realize it at the time, but we didn't have the option to do offline updates. Now we have, as of, I want to say October or November, whenever that release was. Let's just say you don't have access to the internet. You can still download and do offline updates as well, which is pretty handy.
Yeah. Another thing they've done here apparently is new features to simplify the way that you get PVS images from VMware to XenServer, as well as Terraform support. So the infrastructure as code, the ability to run scripts or run Terraform scripts and build machines in a manner where they're all the same and uniform. Any thoughts on this section, guys?
Yeah, and I think the critical thing here is that more and more customers, especially that are running large operational environments, the key here is working with the orchestration tools that are out there, right? Terraform obviously is one of the leading ones out there. We write a lot of NetScaler scripting with Terraform. We've done an awful lot of our scripting and supporting, the operations and management piece of it has been doing a lot of it's coming out of Terraform scripting. So this adds into that, right? Because everyone's looking to turn it into an automation process as much as possible.
Right. Yeah. This also mentions anti-affinity support, Windows 2025 support, and then this one I recently saw an article about this Citrix Aware XenServer. Which I found interesting. And basically, from what I can tell and what I read, this may only apply currently to on-premises workloads, but you can connect the Xen Center to your Citrix environment and see information about the status of your delivery controllers, certain of your MCS machines, things of that nature. Really kind of neat. I haven't tried this out yet, but it really looks like a kind of a nice to give you status information directly from XenServer on some of those hosts, right, guys?
And I think the critical thing here, Bill, is that almost every single customer is looking to streamline that operations tasks and streamline that operation services that are out there, right? So using it instead of having to go bounce between multiple consoles to be able to do those things. It's one thing from the administrative level. It's another thing to have the observability stuff and the observability capabilities all being integrated. So this is yet another step towards that goal of having, that single pane of glass to manage your entire environment, both from a help desk perspective, but also from a day-to-day operational perspective.
Yep.
So one of the things I think you'll notice, there's been sort of a trend here, if you will, throughout the article is, listen, I've had a lot of customers come to me and say two things. One, either A, we're trying to collapse some costs and we already own this. Is there a way for us to deploy this? And number two, we've got some tooling here that's really meant to migrate off of VMware. Is what it boils down to. So is it a good fit for everything? No, but I think for your Citrix workloads, it's a very good fit. So I think it's something you should consider. We have a couple of things buried in this article, which I think are fantastic. So there are two links out to TechZone articles that will actually kind of walk through what that looks like. Actually, I think it's somewhere else, Bill. I think it's the click after the click, but there are a couple of very good articles on what that migration looks like from a PBS, non-PBS, perspective. And so what I would say is, in fact, I think it was in the PBS migration from VMware to XenServer. There's a few TechZone articles that are built to walk through what that looks like. So, I would still say, hey, maybe reach out to XenTegra and have them walk through what that plan looks like. Because again, when you switch hypervisors, you do anything infrastructure related, it certainly needs that planning. But I think those TechZone articles will give you a very good idea of what that workflow looks like. And I think you'll be surprised at the work effort. What that used to be many years ago and what that work effort looks like now is much different. So if you haven't looked at XenServer in a while, now's a good time to do it. And if you are a hypervisor customer, now is definitely the time to go look at it.
Yeah. One last question is in the article, and it's clear on this. What about hardware? Can you use the same servers? Will XenServer 8 run on the same servers as Citrix Hypervisor 8.2? And from what the article says, generally, yes. The hardware compatibility list is the same. But I encourage all customers to go to hcl.xenserver.com and look up their hardware, particularly their storage controllers. Make sure that stuff is on the list before you start popping in USB sticks and imaging the servers. And even better, reach out to XenTegra. We've done some of these. We're doing them right now. We've got consultants and engineers that are really well versed in this and can help you through the journey to get your environment built on XenServer, your Citrix environment built on XenServer, and get it performing very well.
And Bill, I think as we're talking about hardware compatibility, a lot of the hardware vendors have done some of the HCL testing or some of the compatibility mode testing very quickly. So that HCL is being updated on a pretty regular basis. And if you find hardware that's not on that list, and it's fairly recent, it's a matter of work. We will work with the hardware manufacturers, and certainly customers and partners can work with the hardware manufacturers to get them certified.
Yep. So if you go out to the HCL, you'll notice a couple of different things. There's a column for version 8.2 LTSR1. So pick any of those, Bill. Let's just start with CPUs, in fact. Yep. You'll see a column for 8.2 LTSR. You'll also see a separate column for 8, right? And you'll notice that most of both columns have checkboxes, meaning it's compatible, but there are a handful here. Some of them are just not supported and some that have a sort of a caveat to it. But here's what I'll say. For the most part, things are supported, but like anything, like Bill said, you'll want to go through and just validate it. Because when we think about hardware compatibility, we've got customers running hardware that dates back quite a long time. and they've gotten their mileage out of hypervisor. But anytime you do an infrastructure upgrade, it's sometimes it's a good chance to refresh the hardware too.
Yeah, really good advice for sure. All right, we're at the end of the article. Any final thoughts, Geremy, Todd?
I think my first or my final thought on this would be really if you're going to be doing any type of migration, especially at the hypervisor level, take the time, plan ahead, do your research, engage with a partner like XenTegra to really kind of walk you through it. Quite frankly, we don't, most customers don't upgrade hypervisors on a frequent basis. Certainly not like you do a desktop operating system or even an application. It pays to take some time and plan it out and get prepared for it.
For sure. Yep. Good advice, Todd. All right. What I'll say is, and I've said it before, probably 100 times on these blogs, probably said it just about in every one of our podcasts, is this is just yet another example of Citrix continuing to evolve and develop on the technology by adding new features and functionality in a product that's included in your universal hybrid multi-cloud or your Citrix platform license. So if you're concerned about the value you're getting out of those licenses, this is just another example of added value at no additional cost. So, and I expect to see this to continue, right, guys?
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
All right. Anything else? Any other final thoughts?
Man, I think that's a mouthful for a Monday.
It is a mouthful for a Monday. Exactly. All right. We'll see you next week then. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks.